Even before Philip Jack Brooks broke the internet with his calmly delivered pipe bomb sermon in 2011, his anti-establishment aura always managed to ring through. He just didn't cut promos quite like anyone else. He didn't emote like the other wrestlers around him. And though CM Punk's attitude could come off as prickly, terse, and harsh, there always seemed to be an authenticity to him. For fans wanting an in-ring representation of themselves, Punk struck a chord with those who desired to be plain-spoken and rational, yet fearless and ballsy at the same time. As kids, we dreamed of being larger-than-life superheroes like Hulk Hogan and the Road Warriors. But as adults, many of us same fans gravitated to the overwhelmingly human CM Punk, the voice of reason in an exceedingly unreasonable world. I'm Jack from Cultaholic.com, and this is the captivating career of CM Punk. Like many younger fans, Punk turned to backyard wrestling as an outlet, performing it alongside his friends and his brother Mike in the Lunatic Wrestling Federation in McKenna, Illinois, situated just 35 miles southwest of Chicago. It was there that Phil Brooks became CM Punk by way of a tag team called the Chick Magnets, CM, alongside partner CM Venom. Punk wanted to pursue wrestling on a more legitimate level and enrolled in the Steel Domain Wrestling School in Chicago, where he would be properly trained by Danny Dominion, Kevin Quinn, and Ace Steel. In fact, down the line, Ace Steel would actually become one of Punk's closest friends and confidants. Punk made his official pro wrestling debut in 1999 at the age of 20 and spent his first few years working for various Midwestern indies, including Wisconsin's North American Wrestling Federation and Mid-American Wrestling. In September 2000, Punk made it to the finals of IWA Mid-South's first annual Sweet Science 16, the tournament that eventually was renamed the Ted Petty Invitational. IWA Mid-South became Punk's home for several years, wrestling with the likes of Colt Cabana, Chris Hero, AJ Styles, and even Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero. His feud with Chris Hero included a 55-minute TLC match, a 93-minute 2 out of 3 falls match, and several 60-minute draws. How very indie. Punk's rising profile led him to other promotions such as Pennsylvania's International Wrestling Cartel, as well as appearances in CZW. In the later months of 2002, Punk debuted for two young companies that would have lasting power, NWA TNA and Ring of Honor. Punk's TNA debut saw he and trainer Ace Steel compete in a gauntlet to fill the tag team title vacancy. 6 weeks later, he surfaced in ROH at All-Star Extravaganza, losing in a 5-man number 1 contenders gauntlet won by a certain Bryan Danielson. In his early days with the company, Punk battled against Colt Cabana and defeated C.W. Anderson at Ring of Honor's 1-year anniversary show in New York City. Punk then moved on to another man who would be one of his key early rivals, Raven. For this feud, Punk turned heel and drew a parallel between the brooding veteran and his own alcoholic father. Now extolling the virtues of his own straight-edge lifestyle, Punk warred against Raven throughout 2003, including in a Raven's Rules match in Boston, a dog collar match at Death Before Dishonor, and a half-hour Clockwork Orange House of Fun match at Beating the Odds. And CM Punk did come out on top in the end, defeating Raven in a steel cage match at The Conclusion in Fairfield, Connecticut that November. Ironically, over in TNA, the two rivals were actually in the same stable, as Punk was a member of Raven's Gathering. There he joined the likes of Julio De Niro and Alexis Lurie, better known as Mickey James. The group feuded with both Shane Douglas and Father Mitchell's Disciples of the New Church before Punk and De Niro double-crossed Raven at the year's end. They spent the early part of 2004 battling the Sandman and various other ECW legends before being driven out by Raven, Terry Funk, and Sabu. Shortly after the feud's conclusion, though, Punk left TNA in the wake of the Rob Feinstein controversy when TNA forbade its wrestlers from working for ROH in the midst of that story. Obviously, as we now know, Punk chose Ring of Honor. In 2004, a lot of Punk's time in ROH was marked by championship pursuits. He won the tag team gold from the Briscoes alongside Colt Cabana, but fell short in battles with AJ Styles over the company's Pure Championship. But what truly put Punk's name on the map, and you may have heard of this feud since, was his 3-match series with world champion Samoa Joe. The first 2 of those matches ended in massively critically acclaimed 60-minute draws. In fact, it was the second match in October 2004 that earned really good reviews, as well as a 5-star rating from Dave Meltzer. Samoa Joe did decisively win the feud at All-Star Extravaganza in December, defeating Punk in a half-hour war. But CM Punk was also the winner in a strange way, because in that feud, he showed the world that he had main event written all over him. In the spring of 2005, Punk accepted a deal with WWE following a tryout match against Val Venus on Sunday Night Heat. In what was supposed to be his Ring of Honor farewell match, Punk actually defeated champion Austin Aries to capture the gold. He began his post-match speech tearfully before slowly turning sinister, threatening to bring the Ring of Honor World title onto WWE programming, and even signed his WWE contract on top of the Ring of Honor Championship. Throughout the summer, or as it would later be known, the Summer of Punk, he retained the gold over Jay Lethal, Roderick Strong, and survived an hour-long draw with Christopher Daniels, before eventually losing the belt to James Gibson, or as we now know him, Jamie Noble. The following day, Punk lost his farewell match, a 2 out of 3 falls bout with Colt Cabana, and was officially WWE bound. In September 2005, Punk debuted for OVW and quickly advanced towards accolades, defeating Ken Doane for the TV title that November and feuding with Brent Albright over the title in the following months. Their rivalry migrated from the TV title scene to the OVW title scene in early 2006, when Albright captured the vacant belt in a tournament final, defeating Punk. But 2 months later, Punk did capture the title, defeating Albright in a strap match before defending it successfully over the likes of Johnny Jeter, Shad Gaspard, and Mr. Kennedy. Punk held the belt until later in August 2006 when he lost it to Chet the Jet, but by that time, he'd already made his presence felt on the main roster. Punk had wrestled at various live events for the ECW brand earlier in the summer, but made his televised debut that August before a welcoming New York crowd, defeating Just Incredible. His character wasn't really as complex as it had been on the indies yet. It was essentially just a confident and collected babyface, but his cult following made him a sustained fan favourite. Among the highlights of that first year on the roster were being a member of Team DX that infamously swept their opponents at Survivor Series, and also helping Tommy Dreamer and the Sandman defeat the New Breed in a tables match at One Night Stand 2007. Punk chased ECW champion John Morrison throughout the summer, losing 3 straight pay-per-view bouts to him before finally beating him on ECW TV in early September to win the title. And though he remained popular with crowds, Punk's on-screen character didn't seem to really have much depth yet outside of competitive good guy with a unique moveset, but the crowds remained with him through his near 5-month reign. Among the highlights of his title run was something of a Stars of Tomorrow kind of match at Survivor Series 2007, where he retained the belt over John Morrison and The Miz. At WrestleMania 24, his push continued as he outlasted 6 other men to win the 4th annual Money in the Bank ladder match. And 3 months later, he cashed in his briefcase on a wounded Edge, capturing the World Heavyweight Championship to ensure that one world title remained on Raw. Yes, Edge had showed up to gloat because he and Triple H were both on SmackDown, and then he lost to CM. But silly Edge, you silly boy. Punk dropped the belt without actually losing it via an injury angle at Unforgiven 2008, but more gold would find him in the coming months. This included a tag title reign with Kofi Kingston and an IC title win over William Regal at the dawn of 2009, making him the fastest man to complete WWE's Triple Crown. Another Money in the Bank briefcase became his at WrestleMania 25, but his cash-in wouldn't be quite as heroic as the previous one. Punk gate-crashed Jeff Hardy's world title win over Edge at Extreme Rules 2009, starting off a heel turn in the process. His straight edge pride was showing itself in overly pious fashion, and Punk ran Jeff Hardy out of the company later that summer, defeating him twice in 1 week, including a loser leaves town match on SmackDown. A feud with Undertaker followed, and after retaining the belt by dubious means at Breaking Point, Punk dropped the gold to Taker at Hell in a Cell. It was one of those cell matches that kind of doesn't really work in the modern era. It's too paced by numbers, and everyone was really shocked at the straightforward way that Punk dropped the gold. Shortly afterwards, however, Punk, looking more like a religious zealot than ever due to the unchecked growth of hair, converted Luke Gallows, formerly known as Festus, into a teetotaler, as well as audience plant Serena. Together, the trio formed the Straight Edge Society, and they were going to feud with the likes of Rey Mysterio and The Big Show. During the angle, Punk was forced to shave his head after a loss to Rey, which he briefly attempted to hide with a Lucha Libre mask. But it didn't last very long, as Big Show revealed his bald little head to the humiliation of the Straight Edge savior. The group, which acquired Joey Mercury along the way, disbanded in the fall of 2010 after Punk defeated Gallows in a match on SmackDown. Punk would injure his hip shortly after crossing over to Monday Night Raw and began a rather popular stage of his career as a gives no F's colour commentator on the show. But his inactivity ended when he attacked John Cena, possibly for spilling his diet soda, and assumed leadership of the rudderless Nexus. He attempted to run the stable in the same cult-like fashion as the Straight Edge Society, but it didn't quite work out so well. The future Bray Wyatt and Curtis Axel, though, were amongst Punk's flunkies as he battled with Cena and Randy Orton throughout the early months of 2011, but wins became scarce. He lost to Randall at both WrestleMania and at Extreme Rules 4 weeks apart as this Nexus, with Punk calling the shots, slowly drifted downwards. Now separated from the pack and a solo superstar once again, Punk started picking up wins in May and June, including a non-title victory over WWE champion John Cena. He became the #1 contender for the belt with a triple threat victory over Rey Mysterio and Alberto Del Rio, and then 1 week later, it happened. The pipe bomb went off. After putting Cena through a table at the end of Raw, Punk, in a Stone Cold t-shirt, calmly walked to the top of the Raw stage, sat down, crossed his legs, and began spewing about various taboos. He talked about WWE politics to the office hierarchy while disparaging the ongoing breakdown of a once strong system. It was revealed that his contract expired the night of Money in the Bank, and Punk, with the wrestling world's eyes upon him, vowed to leave his hometown of Chicago and WWE with the gold. While Punk had actually signed a new WWE contract in real life, tensions in the kayfabe sense ran high when 15,000 fans at the Allstate Arena treated him like a conquering hero. His match with Cena came loaded with plenty of intriguing ramifications, and to top it all off, it ranks amongst the most dramatic and exciting world title matches in WWE history. In the end, he prevailed with the go to sleep and managed to escape the building before an irate Vince McMahon could try and foil the celebration. In a controversial booking decision, Punk's exodus lasted only 8 days before he returned to the new theme tune of Cult of Personality to confront interim champion John Cena. Everybody really wanted Punk to be gone for a little bit longer to really sell that storyline, but yes, he came back after only just about a week away. Punk defeated Cena once more at SummerSlam, only for a run-in by Kevin Nash and a subsequent Alberto Del Rio cash-in to rob him of the gold by the end of the night. This second summer of Punk fizzled out in a confusing storyline involving Nash, Triple H, John Laurinaitis and others, but Punk, complete with special ring announcement from Howard Finkel, managed to regain the title at Survivor Series inside Madison Square Garden. He defeated Alberto Del Rio via submission to kick off a 14-month reign with the belt. In the coming months, Punk reverted to the more valiant fighter babyface MO that defined his first 3 years on the main roster, turning back Del Rio, The Miz, Ziggler, and others while remaining wary of John Laurinaitis, who had taken over as Raw's on-screen authority. And once they were defeated, a few other interesting challengers to Punk would enter the fray. A returning Chris Jericho tried to get in Punk's head with various remarks about his dysfunctional family and his history of personal demons, to which Punk violently defeated him at WrestleMania 28 and at Extreme Rules the following month. Daniel Bryan earned his way into a title match at Over the Limit, one of the more underrated championship bouts WWE has ever seen between two bona fide internet darlings. Punk narrowly escaped with the gold and managed to retain it at No Way Out in a triple threat with Kane, why was Kane there, and at Money in the Bank. AJ Lee, Bryan's on-screen girlfriend and Punk's eventual real-life wife, entered into the angle while displaying increasing signs of instability. And though Punk was able to once and for all vanquish Bryan in July, he himself faced a change in presentation. 8 nights after Money in the Bank at Raw 1000, John Cena cashed in his briefcase with advance notice on Punk, but Punk managed to retain via a DQ loss thanks to the Big Show. The Rock, who had returned to challenge the champion to a title match at the 2013 Royal Rumble, got himself involved, only for Punk to take him out, despite being a babyface. Suddenly, Punk began displaying signs of a conniving, bitter heel, and unions with Paul Heyman and the debuting Shield spelled it out further. He managed to retain the gold throughout the fall over the likes of John Cena and Ryback, but wasn't so lucky come the Rumble, when The Rock, at age 40, brought Punk's 14-month title reign to an end. Punk failed in his rematch against The Rock at Elimination Chamber, and again 8 nights later in a genuine classic on Raw when trying to win Cena's WrestleMania title match from him. His ticket to the big dance didn't come in the main event, as Punk would later reveal he so badly wanted, but through instead the 20-0 Undertaker, and the new angle was boosted by a real-life tragedy. William Paul Bearer Moody had passed away just after Punk vs. Taker was announced, and Punk subsequently stole Bearer's trademark urn, taunting Undertaker with it while treating it like a worthless plaything. But storyline controversy aside, in what will be WrestleMania 29's best match, Punk came up short against the Dead Man, becoming the 21st and final notch in the undefeated streak. After taking a couple of months off to recharge his batteries, Punk returned at Payback in his Chicago hometown, defeating Chris Jericho in a one-off match. Friction between Punk and Heyman surfaced around this time, and Heyman's other main client, Brock Lesnar, started to involve himself on Heyman's behalf. At Money in the Bank 2013, Punk was on the verge of gaining a third career briefcase in the main event when Paul Heyman turned on him, costing him the match. A no DQ bout between Punk and Lesnar was set for SummerSlam, which Brock managed to win after an assist from Heyman. In the months ahead, Punk battled Heyman and his underlings, IC champion Curtis Axel and longtime Punk nemesis Ryback. He defeated the big guy at Battleground before beating both him and Heyman at Hell in a Cell the following month. From there, Punk moved on to feuds with the Wyatt family and the Shield, while forming an alliance with Daniel Bryan. But unbeknownst to Punk at this time, while he toiled through ongoing pain and a persistent sick feeling, he was actually working with a staph infection, which according to him, he was unable to get WWE physician Chris Amann to do anything about. Punk's final match was the 30-man 2014 Royal Rumble, in which he entered as number 1. Punk actually sustained a concussion during this match and spent a good portion of his 49 minutes inside the ring lying around in a daze before getting pulled out by Kane in the final stages. The very next day, frustrated with WWE Creative and the powers that be, and battling sickness and pain, Punk walked out of the company. He was officially served his termination notice on his wedding day that June and has vowed never to return. And sure enough, at the time of recording anyway, we are yet to see him back in WWE. Since leaving the company, Punk has been involved in mixed martial arts through a brief career as a fighter, losing both of his fights actually in sadly one-sided fashion, but also as an announcer for the Cage Fury Fighting Championships. More than 5 years have passed since Punk has wrestled, and while he swears he's retired for good, one never knows what tomorrow may bring. And even if CM Punk never wrestles again, he leaves behind a unique and memorable legacy in the business, lauded as a skilled wrestler and undoubted main event performer. Perhaps even more so, he'll be remembered as one of the sport's most spellbinding voices, a straight shooter and a rabble-rouser that always managed to stand out above the herd, doing so, whenever possible, on his own terms. Thanks very much for watching, and let us know what you think in the comments section down below. You can follow Cultaholic on Twitter at Cultaholic and on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do, then please do check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Cultaholic, where you can pledge. And don't forget, of course, most importantly of all, to hit subscribe and to join us.